Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh. I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is a live webinar. It is on the member tools and reports that are in the system. There's a lot of things that we can do in BNI Connect that we could never really do before, at least not easily, as a member as well as a leadership team person. We're going to go through some of those functions within the system. We're going to review some of the reports, what they mean, how to get into them, what you can do with some of these functions. This is, as I said, a live webinar, so if you have any questions as we're going through the content today, please do feel free to ask those questions as we're going along. The easiest way to do that is through the questions control panel. It's right in the GoToWebinar software. You can type your question in. I will see it pop up on the screen. I'd be happy to answer that as we're going through. Alternatively, if you are at a computer that has a microphone, or if you're dialed in via telephone, if you'd prefer to speak your question, just raise your hand or drop a note in the questions panel saying, please open up my mic, and I will be happy to unmute you so that you can ask your question out loud. Today's webinar is being recorded. Once it is done, it will be put up with the rest of our recorded webinars. Those are all located on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, this is where you'll find all of the recorded content. There is a ton of videos up here, including some videos by Dr. Meisner, as well as on a bunch of the different features in the system. So please do check out our YouTube BNI Connect Global channel. They'll also be located on the support site. If you go to support.bniconnect.com and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a training section. And in there, you'll see the webinars broken out by month. So if you wanted to see any of May's webinars, you could check those out here. So let's get started. The things that we're going to talk about today, again, are the tools and functions. The first things that you need to do is to log into BNI Connect. So either go to bniconnect.com or from your regional website, click on the Members Only link. In most of the regional websites, like if I go to my own regional website, bniri.com, where I'm a member, you should see a Members Only or a BNI Connect button in the upper right-hand corner. Just click on that, and that'll take you to the same place, the login page for BNI Connect. Once we log in, this will take us to basically our home screen. So I am a member, so I will also be seeing the member screen. And on the first screen, what we're going to see here is all of your personal information. So it's basically, we call it the My BNI Business page. And I'm just waiting for your screen to catch up to mine. And here we go. So the My BNI Business screen here has all of your activity in your chapter for the last 12 months, as well as your lifetime in BNI. So even if you left and came back or transferred from one chapter to another, all of that information should be there. On this screen is also where we would do things like enter a referral slip, or enter thank you for closed business slips, or enter one-to-one slips. I'm not going to get into that today because we do have a whole webinar just dedicated on that function. What we're going to talk about today is a lot of the reports and other functions that are beyond this home page. Now, most of the things that we're going to be doing are going to be located in two places. So you notice up at the top here, there is menu items. So there's network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. Depending on your access levels, you may or may not see all of these options. But at the very least, everybody on the call today, all members, should see network, operations, and reports. These are the three primary functions. Network is where we go to do all of our network functions or the social media functions in BNI Connect. So things like the groups, the connections, the testimonials, the picture gallery. Operations are where you kind of do things in BNI Connect. So it's where you would go to enter visitors, or you're going to go to perform functions such as email my chapter, email a visitor invitation. Reports, on the other hand, are where you get the information back out of the system. One thing that's great about BNI is that we record a lot of statistics, and this is where to get a lot of that statistical information back out of the system. Let's start off with a couple of things that we can do in BNI Connect. So I'm going to click on the Operations Chapter menu, and that's going to bring us into the chapter operations functions. Now again, depending on your access levels in BNI Connect, you may or may not see all of these options, but I'm just going to show you a couple of things that everybody should see in the system. Most of those functions are going to be down here under Create Email. And this is one of my favorite parts of the system because I use this almost on a daily basis. So as a member, when I want to get in touch with people of my chapter, also as a director, I'm also a director of a chapter here in Rhode Island, and when I need to get in touch with the members of that chapter, I use it here as well. So in the past, before BNI Connect, I used to have to, if I wanted to email the other members of my chapter, I would go to my Outlook, I would try to find the last message that everybody had emailed the group on, and I would hit reply all and hope that it went back to everybody. Inevitably, though, that always was missing a few people. It was always missing the new people that had just joined, or it included people that had left the chapter recently. By clicking on Email My Chapter, you can very easily get the most current address list for your chapter. So if I click on Email My Chapter, what you'll see here is these are all of the email addresses for my fellow chapter members. And we have a chapter of about 50 members, so trying to keep up an email list of 50 members is a time-consuming process. BNI Connect does that for me. So all we have to do is highlight everything. We can right-click and choose Copy, or you can always hit Control-C on your keyboard. And then what I would do is just start up my own email program and paste it into the CC, or the BCC line is even better. And I could type out my message and hit Send. No more hunting and pecking, no more searching for email addresses. They're all right there for me. And this works in Gmail, it works in AOL Mail, whatever email program that you're using. You can just copy and paste the email addresses. This will also keep a message in your sent items, so you have a review of that at a later time. Now, similarly, if you'd like to email visitors to your chapter, so let's say that you're the chapter growth coordinator, or you're a visitor host, or you're just doing a stack day, or you'd like to invite the visitors back to your chapter that have come to visit you over the past, let's say, 6 months or a year. You can use the Email Chapter Visitors function. And this works the same way, except there's a little bit of a search involved. So you can choose any time frame you'd like. So this would, by default, get the visitors just for last week if I wanted to follow up with last week's visitors. But if I wanted to, let's say we were holding a Visitors Day for our chapter, I want to get everybody that's come in the past 6 months. I could put in from November through the current date. I can either pick and choose which categories I'd like to invite back, or I can just choose all. I can click Next, and this would give me the email address list. And the same thing, I could copy these and paste them into an email that I've designed myself. Now, the last function under this Create Email is for emailing visitor invitations. Now, with visitor invitations, whenever we wanted to invite a visitor to our chapter in the past, we could do that. A lot of people would use postcards, or you could just use a regular, invitation message. But one of the negative parts about it is that every single time you have to either write out or type out where your chapter meets. You have to come up with a couple of sentences about what BNI is. It gets to be inconsistent and also gets to be time-consuming. The Email Visitor Invitation function takes all of the pain out of inviting somebody to visit your chapter. Let me show you how that works. So if I go to, again, Operations Chapter, Create Email, and then Email Visitor Invitation, this is going to allow me to invite somebody to come and visit my chapter. So I can just select their title, put in their first name. So I'm just going to put in John Doe, their company name, Doe Incorporated, and their email address. Now, I'm going to put my own email address in because I want to show you what this visitor invitation looks like. If you'd like to try this out yourself, you can just put your own email address in. Now, here's for a personal message. This is going to be the first paragraph of the template email that goes out. You can make it as long or as short as you'd like. Let's say that I met this person at a networking event. So I was at a Chamber of Commerce event. I met them, and during the conversation, I said, hey, it was great meeting you here. Why don't you come visit our BNI chapter? So it was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I look forward to seeing you at my BNI meeting next week. Now, once I click send, it's going to send a template email directly to that email address, and it does go out right away. It doesn't get saved anywhere. It doesn't get stored anywhere. They don't get added to any kind of a database or anything. It's just an email message that goes out. And here's what that email message looks like. So what we can see here is that it has a nice branded image. If anybody has sent out the postcards in the past, you'll recognize this, that this is the same image that appears on the front of a lot of the postcards. And then it has, Dear John, it was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I look forward to seeing you at my BNI meeting next week. So that's what I typed into the message. Now the rest of it, some of it's pulling the information out of BNI Connect, and some of it is descriptive about BNI. So it's letting them know they're cordially invited to next week's meeting, what the name of the chapter is, where we meet, the address that we meet at, what day, and what time. So no more typing in the address. They can very easily Google this. They can very easily find you. Gives a little bit of information about what BNI is. Lets them know that their profession is open and they're looking for somebody to fill that profession. And finally, a call to action. Please let me know if you plan to attend. I'll reserve a place for you. Now, if they reply to this, it will go to your email address. So I could hit reply and the message would go back to me. And it's signed from you and the name of your company. And again, it's pulling all of that information directly out of the system. So it takes the guesswork out of it. Other things that you might be interested in on the operations menu, if your chapter is tracking goals, this is a great way to view your chapter goals that your leadership team has assigned. If you click on View Chapter Goals and the start date that you'd like to be reviewing those from, it will show you what your chapter has established for goals and how you're doing with those goals. Now, my chapter's leadership team hasn't done that yet for this period, but if they did, we would see all of that information in here. Let's take a look at some of the reports in the system. Now, to go to the reports, we can click on Reports Chapter. And this will take us into the reporting function. Now, we're not going to go through all of the reports. There are quite a few reports listed here. Just going to go through some of my favorite reports. The first report on here is a very basic report. It's the chapter roster report. And this one's really helpful for a couple of reasons. I'm going to click Go, and this will bring up the chapter roster report. Now, why I like this one is that this one lists your entire leadership team out. So anybody that has one of the top named positions in your chapter will be listed here. So if you happen to forget who your growth coordinator is and you wanted to give them a call because you had a great idea for a stack day that you were doing, you could just go to the chapter roster report and say, oh yeah, you know, Frank is my chapter growth coordinator. Here's his phone number. I'm going to give him a call. Or let's say that you're having a problem in your chapter and you'd like to get in touch with your director consultant, but you don't know what his phone number is or what her phone number is. You can look up your chapter director consultant from the chapter roster report and be able to give them a call. Now, scrolling down, it will show all of the members of my chapter as well. I can sort that by first or last name if I'd like to. I can see what their classification is. I can see what their company name is, and it has their phone number as well. So it makes it very easy to find phone numbers if you would like to give anybody from your chapter a call. It also gives you a last 90 days view of the POMS report. So if you'd like to check your absences or anything like that, you can do that through this particular report. Now, anything that is underlined in a report, you will be able to sort. So if I wanted to sort by, let's say, classification, I could click on classification and it would sort that in alphabetical order. And just about all reports in the system can also be exported or printed. So if I wanted to print this out to a piece of paper, I could very easily do so. I could also export this to Microsoft Excel or to Numbers, or if you're using OpenOffice or LibreOffice, you could export this to an XLS format. So I'm going to skip down a couple here, and I'm going to take a look at the meeting notes report. Now, what this report is great for is there's a best practice in BNI to be able to take notes during a meeting. Now, why is this helpful? One of the best ways to increase your chances of being able to give a referral in BNI is to really pay attention to what people are asking for during their 60 seconds. Well, if we're not writing this information down, a lot of times by the time we leave our chapter meeting, we tend to forget what it is that people talked about, especially in larger chapters where you're hearing 30, 40, or 50 different 60-second presentations. That's what this meeting notes report is for. So if I click on Go, what we'll see here, it's a very simple report. And it just lists all of the people in my chapter, sorted alphabetically, and their company, and a place to write notes. So if I was to print this out to a piece of paper, I would have a place to write that down. Now this is one of the reports where maybe you need a little bit more information to write things down. This is a great candidate for exporting this report to Excel so that you can just do a little bit of formatting to get it exactly the way that you want it to be. Or if this happens to be your job in your chapter, a lot of chapters will have somebody assigned to passing out a roster every week for taking notes during the meeting. This is a great way to not have to keep up with that process manually. You can just go into the system, pull the report as soon as somebody joins your chapter or when somebody leaves the chapter. Now, you'll see that this report has two options, export without headers and export. What that means is that if I export it without headers, all of these parameters up here at the top will not be included when I export it. So it means that it'll be formatted a little bit nicer. If I choose export, then this information, if I need it for record-keeping purposes or anything, will be included in that export. I'm going to choose to export without headers. What we'll see is it downloaded here in my toolbar. I happen to be using Google Chrome, so this is where it puts its downloads. I'm going to click on it to open it. And let me bring it over here. So you can see this is just now in Excel format. But what I like about this report is it's really easy to now customize it a little bit to get it the way I want it. So maybe I want a little bit more room to take notes during the meeting. I can do that. Maybe I also need some grid lines in here to make it a little bit easier. So I can just highlight what I need to, maybe insert some grid lines. And maybe I just need to make this a little bit bigger so that the notes section is bigger for me to write in. I can make things bold. So whatever it is that you'd like to do to make this report more usable, it only takes about 30 seconds worth of formatting, as opposed to trying to keep up with this list on a regular basis can be extremely time-consuming to re-enter people's information on a regular basis. So print this out, or better yet, print out 20 or 30 copies for your chapter, and be more effective during your chapter meeting. The next report on the list is the Summary POMS report, and this is really the meat and potatoes of record keeping in BNI. With BNI Connect, we can now pull a Summary POMS report for our chapter anytime we want to. When I was a member before BNI Connect, I've been a member here in Rhode Island for about 11 years. Used to be chomping at the bit waiting for the 1 week a month, or if our VP happened to forget, maybe once every couple of months, that they would print out the POMS report and pass it out to the chapter. But now I can pull that from my chapter anytime I want to. When I click on the summary POMs, it will give me a date range. I can choose any date range I'd like. If I'd like to just look at the last month, or if I'd like to look at the last 6 months, or maybe I want to look at the last 5 years worth of data. I can just click Go. I'm going to leave it as the last 6 months here. And this will give me a POMs report. So what we can see is all of the member names on the left, and then the POMs: present, absent, late, medical, substitute. Now the next 4 columns are referrals given and referrals received. So RGI is referrals given inside, so that's a Tier 1 referral. So if one member of a chapter refers themselves to another member of the chapter. Referrals given outside is a Tier 2 referral, or an outside referral, meaning I referred somebody else that I know to this person. And the same thing for referrals received inside and referrals received outside. V is for visitors, one-to-ones. TYFCB is thank you for closed business, and CEUs, or chapter education units. You can scroll down and find yourself in the list, or if you're on the membership committee and you're reviewing other members. And you can also see the totals down at the bottom. And of course, this report can be exported without headers, or it can be printed. I'm going to skip around a little bit more here. And if the POMs report is too much information for you, and you'd like to just see your own personal information, or let's say, again, you're on the membership committee and you're reviewing a specific member that's coming up for renewal, that's where the personal POMs report comes in. Now, the personal POMs report allows you to take that same information that's in the summary POMs report, but just to pick one name out of it, and they'll show you the week-by-week activity. So let's say I wanted to review my own activity. I would find myself in my chapter list in the drop-down. I can choose a date range, and again, I can go back as far in time as I'd like to. So let's say I'm going to go back to May of 2005 through May of this year. And I can click Go. And what this will show me is, again, the referrals given, received, number of visitors, my absence, my POMs status, one-to-ones, thank you for closed business, and CEUs. And it shows me a week-by-week activity of what I did. So if I wanted to see trends, when was I doing really well in BNI for a long period in a row, or was I on a hot streak or a cold streak, I could very well look at the information here and be able to map that out for myself, or again, for another member. All right, I'd like to go back up a couple of reports here and take a look at this report here, classifications not in chapter. Now, I love this report for anybody that is looking to grow their chapter. This is a great report for you. Now, I'm sure this has never happened in your chapter, but you're coming up to a visitor's day, you're coming up to a stack day, you just want to invite some people to the chapter, and people say, oh, you know what, I've exhausted my entire contact list, I have nobody left to invite, I can't even think of anybody to invite. This is a great report for you. If I click on Go, what this is going to show me is every profession in BNI that is not represented in my chapter. And it'll also show me how many other chapters in my region do have this profession. So, for example, our chapter, even though we're 50 members, for some reason we don't have a payroll person. Now, that's a very popular profession that I can see. There's 10 other chapters in our region that have a a payroll services person. What that means is that other chapters may be turning away payroll people. I might want to talk to some of the other chapters in our region and say, hey, if a payroll person comes to visit, or does the payroll person in your chapter have somebody else that they might like to send to our chapter? Very easy to come up with ideas. Again, plumber, advertising specialties, construction, bank services, chiropractor. These are all of the top professions in our region that we can start to look for our own chapter. And again, if you're just running out of ideas for who to invite, there's about 450 professions on this list. Everything from landscape to supplies, martial arts, chef, candles, content preservation, underwater basket weaving, I'm sure is in the list somewhere. If you take a look at this list, this may be able to jog your memory to be able to think of other people to invite to your chapter. Now, the last report that I want to look at on this particular list is the Member Details Report. Now, the Member Details Report is actually 4 reports mixed into one. The great thing that this report is for is if you think back to your Member Success Program, one of the things that we're taught in our Member Success Program is that we should be doing a gains exchange before each one-to-one meeting. What's the gains? That's the goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. And we should be, if I was to do a one-to-one with you, I should be sending you my gains information. You should be sending me your gains information so that we can review that before we sit down and we talk. That way we open up deeper avenues of conversation and maybe learn a thing or two about each other that may not have come up during that one-to-one meeting. Well, we can do that through BNI Connect by clicking on the Member Details Reports. So if I was to click on View Member Gains, and let's say that somebody was doing a one-to-one with me, they could drop my name down from this list and click Go. Now they can either print this out or they can read it, or let's say that I know that the other person isn't going to be near a computer. I could go here, I could print this out or export it and send it to them for the gains exchange. From this report, you could also click over to the 3 other reports. So I could click over and look at the bio. This is helpful for any secretary-treasurers that might be on this webinar. You can look up people's bios. Imagine not having to chase members down for their bios before their 10-minute presentation. It's all stored in BNI Connect. You can also view their TOPS profile as well as their commercials. All right, we're getting to the bottom of the hour. I'd like to show you all one more thing, and that is if we go back to the home screen. After you've started poking around a little bit in BNI Connect and you come across your favorite reports, your favorite tools, your email, your chapter tool, or whichever things that you like the best, you can make shortcuts to these and have them at your fingertips without having to remember where they are by clicking on your chapter menu here under My BNI Business. Now, this list here is a shortcut to all of your favorite common functions in BNI Connect. So let's say that I wanted to view chapter goals or email my chapter. If I just go to my shortcut menu for chapter and click on Email My Chapter, it brings it up right away without me having to go to Operations, Chapter, Create Email, Email My Chapter. So instead of 4 clicks, it's just 1 click. Now, you can also customize this menu by clicking on the Configure button. Now, everything that's on the left-hand side here is in that shortcut menu. Everything that's on the right-hand side here is things that I'm not using. If I'd like to, I can take stuff out of this list by clicking on the X button, and you'll notice it goes from my left-hand menu to my right-hand menu. If there's something that I like over on this right-hand side that I'd like in my list, let's say Email My Chapter, I want that back in my list, I can click the check mark in there, and it'll come over into my list. You can also reorder this list by just dragging and dropping things up and down in the list. So if I want the Email My Chapter to be right up at the top so it's the first thing I see, and then maybe the Member Details Report, that's the next thing that I'd like to see, I can put those things at the top of my list, hit Save, and when I go back to my previous screen, we'll see that Email My Chapter is now at the top of the list with the Member Details Report second. So again, we're at the bottom of the hour. For those of you that need to leave right away at the bottom of the hour, I'd like to thank you for being here. Just a reminder that we do have plenty of time for questions, so if you do have any questions, I invite you to please raise those questions now. You can do so by typing into the questions panel or by raising your hand, and I'd be happy to open up your microphone. Upcoming questions and what we've done so far is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. And it looks like we have Shelly Cummings, and she has a question. She has her hand raised. Let me open your microphone. Shelly, are you there?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I am a new member to BNI, Turlock Business Partners here in the Central Valley of California. I need to go in and plug in all my information on BNI Connect for the first time. My question to you specifically is it imperative right now that I put in my information on my bio and have, you know, my commercial or my presentation, or should I just make sure that the main things are there right now and then add to that later?
Here's where I would start. To put the things into BNI Connect, all of your information, what you do is you click on the My Account button up here in the upper right-hand corner. Now, the things that I would start with are the things that have the greatest visibility. The things that have the greatest visibility are, obviously, make sure your name and your company and all that's correct. But this My Business and the keywords on the front screen, on this first tab here, those are both accessible on the regional websites. So if people find you just on the internet, they will see this information, and they'll find you using the keywords. So I would start with that. On the second tab, make sure that you've uploaded a picture and a company logo. And then on the Bio tab, I would start with the TOPS profile.
Okay.
Because these are the things that appear on the public website. So, for example, if somebody was looking for me on my regional website, and this is open to BNI members and non-BNI members alike, they go to find a member, and let's say that they're looking for computer repair or computer support. And they happen to click on me in the list here. These are the things that everybody sees that's available to the world. So it's all your contact details, but most importantly, your picture, your logo, that My Business description, and this is the TOPS profile on the bio page.
Okay, excellent.
So is that helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. I just needed to clarify that.
Sure, and I do have some recorded webinars on just strategies for filling out your bio, not your bio, basically your profile. That one's the one called Building VCP with BNI Connect, and you can find the recording on the support site, and you click on the question mark in BNI Connect, and that'll take you here. Go to the webinars section, and I know there's some in April, but there's Building VCP with BNI Connect. It's another half-hour webinar that'll take you through all the different screens and exactly how to upload your photo and just some explanations for all the fields.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being on the webinar today. All right, let's see. We have another question from Daniel Douglas. And for those of you that are still here, I am happy to stay on the webinar as long as you guys have questions. So please feel free to ask questions. Happy to be here. Daniel says, would you briefly go over how you did the meeting notes again? Sure, absolutely. So the meeting notes, if you've customized your chapter menu, you can just click on the meeting notes report. Otherwise, go to Reports, Chapter, and this will take you to the Reports section. Click on the meeting notes report and click Go. Now, this will just bring it up in the regular report format. which of course you could just print out using the print button. I find this report a little bit easier. You can make it a lot fancier basically into your own, however you want to do it, by clicking Export Without Headers, and this will download it to an Excel file. It'll give you a warning. You sure you want to open it? It's from the internet. I click yes. One more security thing. I have to make sure I click Enable Editing. Now, if you're using Excel, there's some great tools that are built in that you can use to make this so much easier. If you've never seen this before, if you have at least Excel 2010, there's a great tool here that says Format as Table. If I click on this, you can see that it gives me the option to just do a quick formatting, and you can choose your own color palette. So I'm just going to click on this one. My table has headers. That means that it has the descriptions of the fields up at the top. I'm going to click OK. Now, what I love about this is you'll see it color-coded and did opposite coloring for every line. And from here, what I'd probably do at this point is just this button up here on the top is Select All. I'm going to open these up a little bit to give myself a little bit more room for taking notes. And then I could print this one out. You could also, let's say, you wanted to put some bordering on there. So I could go to this Borders and Shading and do All Borders, and that would give me a nice printed border. So when I did go to actually print this one out, it would allow me to, so I could change the scaling, I could fit it to one page, or do whatever I need to. But the important thing is that this gives me full control over my report. So I can do whatever I want to do with it, as opposed to just, when you're just printing from the internet, like through this print screen here, it doesn't give you too many options. So does that answer your question, Daniel? Does that help? So, and that's true for all reports, by the way. If you don't like the layout, just export it to Excel, and you can change the layout to be any way you'd like it to be. So that was the last question I have listed here. Does anybody else have any additional questions? All right, just one final favor. A good referral for me is to please, if you found something helpful in today's webinar, to please go back to your chapters. Let them know about these webinars. We do between 12 and 20 live webinars that are free every single month. We'd love to get the knowledge out of our heads and into yours. And finally, if you could give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Global, BNI Connect Global. And this is our Facebook page, so we do webinar announcements and reminders and tips and tricks and upgrade announcements and things like that. So give us a like and follow us on Facebook, and we'd love to have you there as well. Again, thank you all for being here today. Look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and happy connecting, everyone.